Hello, my name is Jason Vega. I am the executive director and founder of Latinx Games Festival. Welcome to the 7th annual Latinx Games Festival. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with an incredible guest, somebody that actually been really curious to speak with for a while, and we connected. Is somebody actually like I'm really curious to get to know, because like I usually speak with there's a lot of roles that I'm very familiar with in the industry, and actually seeing your history, Gretchen Ortiz, by the way, is joining us. Seeing your history, I felt like, okay, like, especially with your most recent role, like I think this is something people need to have a better understanding of, including myself. So I wanted to like deep dive in these things. So please, Gretchen, tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself. Like, what do you do in the world of gaming?
Cool. By the way, thanks for having me. This is great. Yeah, just what you said. My name is Gretchen Ortiz. So I'm originally from Puerto Rico, Caguas, Puerto Rico. I have a bachelor's in psychology and from University of Puerto Rico, and a master's from Georgia Tech in human-computer interaction. I'm a gameplay data analyst. What does that mean? I'm basically someone that combines gameplay data, like data that you get from players' behavior within the game, and also playtest data. So what is happening in the game? Why are they doing the things that they're doing? So it's kind of like a combination of data science and user research. So this is basically to inform developers, publishers, on like opportunities to make games more accessible, user friendlier, while also keeping challenging and interesting.
That's pretty cool. I mean, when I hear that, I can't help but think of like a lot of the older games and like how that role just absolutely like wasn't a thing back when we grew up playing video games. Before I ask the next question, I just gotta like rep it a little
Oh,
bit.
yes. Super proud.
As a fellow Puerto Rico myself, I just had to like, kind of show some love there. I'm a New York Rican, so born and raised, but would spend summers and Christmas with my grandparents in Puerto Rico out in Juncos.
That's great.
And some other relatives out in Caguas and Ponce. So,
nice.
All the love here. But, hey, speaking of these old video games, that absolutely didn't have your role in it, right? Like, what did you grow up playing? Like, what were some of the games you played while you were growing up?
Some of my favorite games, they were basically influenced by my dad, because my dad was the one, buying the games for me, air quotes, for me. They were actually for him. But this was way back with the NES, the Nintendo. We played so much of like Super Mario Brothers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman. Oh my God. These are all like super old school 8-bit graphics. Yeah, they were like my bread and butter, playing that every day. And then I guess at some point when I took ownership, right, of the gaming, and it was not my dad, that was more of the PlayStation era. And I guess like some of the franchises that I will lean into were Tony Hawk, like the very early Tony Hawks, and like Crash Bandicoot. Like, yeah.
Wow. So there's like his name is slipping me right now, but there's an incredible story on the development of Crash Bandicoot that's like one of my favorite game development stories ever, where they essentially like hacked the Sony like SDK to like utilize resources within the hardware that they weren't supposed to, out of fear that they might like burn the PlayStation out. But like it's an amazing story. If you love Crash Bandicoot, just Google like game development Crash Bandicoot. I'm sure you'll find like it's like one of the first videos that pop up when you search like Crash Bandicoot and development. Yeah. A great game as well. But
by the way, by that time I was really into the Spice Girls, and there was a game, like a dance rhythm game with the Spice Girls songs
on PlayStation, right?
on PlayStation.
Yeah. I remember that. I never played it, but I remember I worked at EB Games back when that was still like a thing, and it was on the shelf, and we would always we didn't get too many new copies of it, but when it would get traded in, it was always getting bought up by like music fans, people that weren't gamers, but they would buy it. So it was actually like in like heavy rotation. Somebody would buy it, they trade it in, it lasts like a day, somebody would pick it up. But you know, hey, I remember when I found out on Good Morning America that like they broke up, and I was like heartbroken.
Oh, heartbreak. Oh my God. Yes. Ginger Spice.
Yeah, that was wow. What a fun time. But what a fun time too, like in gaming, especially with PlayStation. So, you know, like obviously like, you know, playing Nintendo, you know, the old school NES, Nintendo and PlayStation, these are like, we're talking like golden era of gaming, right? Like some of the biggest IPs, best franchises are born from this time period. But like let's talk a little bit about like some of your like the moments in gaming that really grabbed you. Do you remember the first moment in gaming that just really grabbed you?
Well, Splinter Cell. So Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, which is the second game of the franchise. I just got hooked. Basically was the first game that I basically beat more than once. I think a lot of the games, even in the NES era when I was like super young, I was not beating those games. Like I will, you know, play it a lot, but I will definitely just not complete or beat the game. So this was actually the first one. So it was a game in which I felt that, ooh, I did this. This was amazing. So I kept playing like the Splinter Cell saga. I guess another game that I've played for the longest time ever was Maple Story. Maple Story, I actually got into it because of friends. And this was when I was in Puerto Rico. And within a year, I actually moved to Atlanta. And I basically used that game to keep in touch with friends back in Puerto Rico. So it was more like a game plus, you know, social network. Oh my God, I would just play that daily. But I was definitely keeping in touch with friends.
That's pretty cool to hear. Yeah. And actually what I'm hearing from like your history too, this obviously Maple Story, like PC, you were playing Splinter Cell on the PC as well, right?
Yes.
So were you like a PC gamer during this time, or yes, just happened to be like the game was on there?
This was college days.
Okay.
So what that means is that I was away from home. You know, my parents got me like a laptop for school, and that's what I had. That's basically what I had. Like, it's not like I had, you know, the money to buy any other consoles. PC is what I had while I was in college.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, that's so cool because like and because especially during that time where, you know, the like when Splinter Cell 2 was, I played Splinter Cell the first 3 on the Xbox. With Xbox Live and multiplayer and everything. And at that time, I kind of transitioned out of being a PC gamer, but PC gaming was still like early, sort of like the big like drive for buying like the best graphics card, which is still kind of a thing, but you can really like hold on to a graphics card for like 5 years and still kind of be okay. Where back then you had to keep like flipping them. So like, was your using your parents bought you a laptop for school, but it sounds like you were using it for way cooler things like gaming. Did you do multiplayer with Splinter Cell? And were you and please
a little bit. I never got into it. I never got into it. That was the Mercenaries versus Spies.
Spies versus Mercenaries.
Yeah. I never really got into it. At that moment, I was not that much into PvP or, you know, competitive gaming. Not like now. Like now, I'm really into Rocket League.
Oh, okay, very
Yes.
cool. So now we're playing Rocket League.
Yes.
What other games are you playing currently right now?
Wow. Currently, um, Rocket League definitely because that's you can see that is my main game. That I play like if not every day, every other day. Um, and then the other games are a little bit more chill. Um, like I'm actually playing Maple Story Idol on my phone. Um, it's like a throwback to Maple Story. Um, but it's really cool because like I really don't have to be there all the time because it just runs itself. It's idle game. The other games that I might be playing at the moment, like jigsaw puzzle games, stuff like that, like more chill. I guess it's kind of like this difference between being very competitive in Rocket League versus you know what, maybe I want to, you know, chill a little bit. Um because when I'm playing Rocket League, I really get like competitive. And you can see that my anxiety levels go up. So I'm actually looking towards games that are more cozy, more chill.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah,
Because like my wife won't admit this. She plays a lot of video games.
okay,
I mean, people that like see her at the events, they know her, but she's not like in the industry per se.
yeah,
But she does the same thing. She's uncomfortable with how competitive she gets. And I'm not so much competitive now. I like playing more like co-op games with my friends, and when I like to chill,
yeah,
I break out like Tetris, you know, like
uh,
old school. She'll go from like trying to like 100% Mario Odyssey to playing Balatro, but instead
yeah.
of trying to chill with Balatro, she's getting like
Oh
angry
no,
and competitive. So she's
oh
very like,
no,
so I always told her, like, you could like there's a balance, right? Like a wholesome game, like trying to
yeah,
like I tried introducing her to Stardew Valley, and
yeah.
I think it was
I
too chill.
I also like um I also
But I
like
love
co-op
chill as well.
games, by the way. I also
Which
like
ones? Okay.
co-op
Mhm.
because then I can play with friends, I can play with my partner. So it's kind of like having some quality time, right? With friends and my partner. Like, games like Split Fiction or It Takes Two. Oh my god.
Oh, it
Those
takes.
games are amazing.
Yeah.
Of course, the Borderlands games. I need to mention those games. I actually work in the most recent one, Borderlands 4.
That's
But
awesome. That
yeah,
I love it. It Takes Two is also like a great
oh my god,
co-op like couple game too. Like anybody can play
yes,
it, but I think it's an even more beautiful experience if you're playing with somebody you like love and care about. You know, like
yeah,
it hits differently, I
yeah.
think.
The
But
narrative,
no,
like
these are
yeah.
great games. Like so okay, you big clearly like hardcore gamer. You're like you like run the gamut of different
I'm
genres and
I'm
flavors of
all
games.
around.
Yeah, no, but that's amazing. So like you clearly love video games, and that must have lit something in you to, loving video games like the way you do to break into the industry. I mean, how
Yeah,
did you break into industry? Like how'd you get in?
it was hard. Let me just put it that way. But networking, honestly, networking, meeting with people, you know, um, talking about my passion, and also basically knowing, like, really deep in my heart that being in the industry is what I wanted. So it was always there, even when there were times in which I basically took some other roles. So within my career, you can see how um, basically started. So when I moved from Puerto Rico, I basically I was in California. By the way, I was very lucky that a friend was there to give us, because I moved with some friends from Puerto Rico. By the way, one of those friends actually works at Accent America.
Oh, nice.
Super proud of him. He's been there for a while. So we both actually got into the industry. And this was because someone helped us, with very cheap rent in Burbank, California. It is one of those things, like, you need to find your village, like you need to find your people. This person was also, from Puerto Rico. So when you do that, it definitely helps. So while in Burbank, I actually got a job as a SEO analyst. I learned a lot in that role. I did a lot of like Google Analytics and website optimization and stuff like that. However, while doing that, I was doing networking in the game industry, right? I was actually going to meetups, going to festivals. So that's one of the perks of being in LA. I believe that being in a major city gives you access to that network. When you go to meetups, when you go to festivals. So yeah, I kept talking, connecting with folks about what I wanted, and basically one of those people that I met helped me with a referral for a contract job at Activision.
Wow.
Which, yeah.
No, it's so cool. No, go ahead.
But just letting you know that my career, it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like you go your ups, you have your downs. Like you get into the game industry, and then you're out of the game industry, and you get again into the game industry in some other role. That's basically how I describe, my career or my path. So it was not a direct path, right? It was more a roller coaster. But that was my first, when the door opened a little bit.
For sure. And, there is really no defined path to get in the industry. It's not like, the video game industry is this beautiful, bizarre hybrid of it's a creative industry, right? It's essentially like a brand new canvas. It's also a young industry, but it was born out of cold, hard tech, so it's the creative industry, it's the tech industry. And now if you look at like movies for the next 20 years, it's full on, it's just like top to bottom entertainment, right? But there is no like direct path. So I'm happy to hear that you had folks looking out for you. And I mean, obviously you were doing the thing and you were putting yourself out there, but you also had people that were like, networking and making sure that like you were putting yourself out there, but I'm sure, they were speaking about you in rooms that you weren't in. And, well, I mean, clearly, because I mean, how do you go from like, hey, this is something I want to do, to like, oh, I work at Activision, right? That's a big deal. So like, speaking of Activision, like, what did you learn at Activision that still influences how you approach your role today?
So while at Activision, you can see that I basically witnessed how developers and how researchers were actually trying to quantify a player behavior. So what I mean by this is that they were running playtests. That's the whole thing about user research, is about running playtests. I mean, you can do other research, you can do interviews in order to understand and do some concept testing, early in the game. But basically, in this case, it was play testing. And while doing playtests, developers, were asking researchers, hey, we want to know how many times a player dies while fighting like a boss. Or we want to know like the difficulty in which they are playing like Guitar Hero and their score. So it was not only what they said at the moment, or what they were saying at the moment, of saying, oh, this song on Guitar Hero is too difficult. People do express that while doing playtesting. Oh, I do feel like this is too difficult, right? They also wanted to know what was their score and what difficulty they were playing in. So it was my job as like a junior, very junior research assistant to actually keep score of this. What that means is that I will be paying attention to all the playtests and having like a manual, like it was a sheet, and I will just put, sticks and, having the numbers like manually, like actually logging the numbers manually. And I remember at that time asking, hey, can developers track this automatically, right? And of course, the researchers said, yes, I mean, they can, however, at the moment, they just don't have the resources, or the telemetry has not been set up, right? Because it was not there yet. So that's why I was doing that. So basically that stayed with me. And even when I do interviews right now, I keep talking about it, because it basically, when something ticks in your brain, oh, it'd be so nice to have that data, like immediately available here. Like we can do so many things with this. So
Wow.
that's yeah.
Yeah, so this is like almost, it sounds to me like it's invaluable experience, actually. Like,
Yeah,
especially sort of like,
you learn.
sounds like it was early days too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like now a lot of this, obviously it's still a developing field too, right? Because like, with
Yes.
data, it's so fluid and always evolving. But like when you're talking like a sheet of paper, right? Like
Yeah.
you're talking like
Literally.
early days of data collection, and everyone kind of like, hey, we have this massive IP, we have to make sure it functions. Can you figure this out? Like, and you got to like figure it out. And you're essentially like, you're not only learning on the job, but you're setting processes and procedures that other people will pick up and build upon.
Exactly.
That sounds awesome. So like, I mean, your time at Activision sounds, I mean, to me actually sounds like fascinating, because like I said, at that like that nexus point of like they're dabbling in data, they've had some experience with it, was still early. And early I was mentioning, okay, well, games is like creative and it's tech as well. It seems like after Activision, you had some time in tech. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so so after Activision, this was in Santa Monica. So I was still in the LA area, and I basically relocated to San Francisco, because my partner actually got like a really good job in San Francisco. So after a while, I got a contract job with a startup, but like my main I guess impactful career, full-time job was with Meta as a UX researcher. And this was for the ads manager reporting team. Conducted usability tests, interviews, card sorting. All of these are like the bread and butter, of a user researcher. And what is it that they do? Oftentimes, like products and engineering teams will have questions about the product or the prototypes, and it was basically my job to figure out how to reach out people in order to have those interviews, have them play test a prototype, and so on. Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot at Meta. Oh my God, I met amazing people. Some of them I even talk to them every now and then. Yeah, they were good. And I learned a lot. And one of those lessons was that I wanted to be closer to data. So one of the coolest things about being in a big tech company is that there's so much data, and we will actually use some of that to do analysis. And on each team, you had a data scientist. So I will partner a lot with data science. And I will be like, hey, can you help me with this SQL query to analyze this specific behavior that we see in a tool? Can you help me with a visualization for the report? And I just fell in love with that process. And actually, the part of the job that I cherish the most was that partnership with data science. So at some point, I basically decided, you know what, I want to get closer to this. I want to learn more about data analysts. I want to learn more about data science overall. So at some point, I actually moved away. Like, I quit my job. This was 2019, something like that. In order to pursue that, like, I basically started taking classes online, most of them, to be more comfortable with SQL, learning Python, but for data analysis specifically, Tableau for creating dashboards, creating visualizations. All of this also happened during COVID, by the way. And because of that, so I was taking those classes, right? And at the same time, I was also in tune with the Rocket League scene on Twitch. So anything video games and Twitch, was like, oh my God, there were so many people on Twitch because of COVID, right? And
Right.
playing video games because of COVID. So I was in tune with the Rocket League scene a lot more. And I basically volunteer to do some data analysis for, like, it was Rocket Street at that moment. So Rocket Street is like an esports related org that at that stage in time, they were organizing the Latin American, like Latam tournaments. These were, by the way, Psyonix sponsored, so actual developer sponsored. And also Finance Gaming. Finance Gaming is more of Puerto Rican esports related org. So it was all about Rocket League, Call of Duty tournaments, and I was basically using my time learning with giving insights to casters, giving insights to these people that were organizing tournaments to make those tournaments better. So
wow. So, like, while you're learning and working, like, basically you're sort of just like washed in data, like you're just immersed in it completely.
Yeah, no, that's and that's what I tell people, like, whenever they are doing a career pivot, because it happens. I will say that this is kind of like a career pivot, because I went from being the one doing interviews, being the one running the play testing, right, to actually the one that the role is to look at the data, look at patterns, look at trends, and then getting insights from that instead of running playtest or interviews. So it was kind of like a pivot. And I always tell people, hey, this is possible, but you really need to show your work. So you really need to have a portfolio. You need to build your portfolio to show that, oh, you learned SQL. Oh, you learned Tableau. Oh, you learned all of the stuff. where are the projects that show that? And that's what I did during this time.
That's amazing. I'm actually
Yeah.
a bit curious about the tournaments. How did
Yeah.
your analysis influence and impact these tournaments?
So there were two ways. One, related to brackets and player seating in those brackets. So meaning, depending on how good you are, or in this case, like your MMR, so your matchmaking rating, that will be your seed or your rank. And then based on that, you will be seated at a specific, part of the bracket in a tournament. Basically to make that tournament exciting for the viewer. At the end of the day, this is stretch. So you just don't want, how to put it, like, you really don't want on stream, like the highest seating versus the very lowest seating. That will just not be good for the viewer. So that way they will have control over the matches in a way, and also which matches they will actually show on stream. Then the other one was providing insights for the casters. So you know how in sports, I don't know if people know this about sports, but a lot of times the people that are casting the game, or the people that are doing the play-by-play in a game, let's say baseball, basketball, whatever, they actually get a sheet with data and with specific stats to talk about while they are casting, or while they're doing their play-by-play, basketball, baseball, whatever. So I was basically doing something similar, but with esports. So the tournaments will sometimes last a week or 2 weeks. So my job was not to give stats every day, but actually to give stats for the final day, because the final day was the most important day. On the final day, they will have the semifinals and then the final, right? So basically I will give stats, like, 500 hours have been played so far in the tournament. 150 goals have been scored so far. David Trox, a player, have been the player with the most saves in the game, with 5 saves per game, and like 60 saves total, and so on. Team Chile, leads in assists, with 3.5 per game. If Team Argentina wants to win, they should put more pressure and not let Chile play their game. So tidbits like that, in order for just the casters to say and fill out the time and talk about it.
But it also feeds into like a lot of you mentioned sports, like my dad was really into like baseball stats.
Yeah.
Like when it came down to stats about anything else, no clue. but when it came down to like baseball stats, like he had it in his head, and he was always a fan of like the announcers when someone would go at bat and they're just breaking down like hey, this is that dude right here, and here's his stats. And I feel like what you're mentioning is still like you're hearing it now in the more like bigger professional like leagues, but it's still something I think that most casters don't tap into. And come on, like, and I'm saying this like from my heart, from one to everybody probably watching. We're all nerds here. We love video games. I think a lot of us are also like number geeks as well, and stat geeks. When it comes down to like esports, I want to hear more stats. Like I love that. I want to hear like how many hours they invest, or like, hey, this team's really good at this. If they push up on this team on, like, it gives you that level of context that you don't normally, that you only really get in sports, but you don't really get on a stream in esports, and still like it's still growing, it's still young, but like I love that not only did this like obviously it's like moving the gears in your head to help you career wise, but it's also like a passion project,
It is a
and
passion project.
you
Yes.
get to pour it right into a tournament, like and it has value, and it adds more layers to it than just like I think as somebody that's not into video games, but is maybe they're walking by their kid's computer watching it, and they're hearing these detailed level stats that might like flip a switch in their head. They may think of like football, basketball, baseball stats, and like I think even, and I don't think I'm reaching out like too deep here. I think that like deep diving this way with numbers can bring in a different type of audience that's just into stats about stuff. So it's so cool to hear that like you're adding this layer to it, or that you're so invested in it.
By the way,
really,
I wanted to give a shout out, by the way, to so it's the name is Chamaco 09 or Chamaco 09. He's actually at some point, I guess, I mean, he's still cast, but at some point he was kind of like the biggest, caster for Rocket League in Latam. For Rocket League, and by the way, Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
and
so
there's
gonna be a lot of this.
So so what I'm trying to say is that it's people, is the network, it's reaching out, it's talking. You have a passion for something, go out there, volunteer, talk to people like they're out there. So this was actually like a connection that I made, with Kanako. It was like, hey, I'm learning data analysis. How about if we partner? How about if you help me with connecting with Rocket Street, connecting with other orgs to help with sats? So yeah, shout out to Jamako, because he's been part of my journey.
No, that's incredible. But you also added value, right? Like you didn't come empty-handed. You brought something like invaluable, I think.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So during this time, obviously, like it's COVID, so like there's a lot going on. Everybody's home. We all like. I had my weird little like 3-whisker COVID beard going on. The sweatpants and all that. It's like a bonkers time, but like. It's cool that you picked up something that was like not only productive, but I'm sure also like was mentally like productive, and you added value. But like in this time, on the grind and doing your thing and freelance and everything, how do you go from like doing this to getting a full-time job at Gearbox? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, again, networking. I had the opportunity to go to GDC, go to Indicate. I'm not sure if that still exists. But basically a conference for indies in the game here in LA. The Latinx Games Festival. I've been there. IDDA meetups here in LA. I was also part of Cafecitos as a mentee. This is online networking event organized by the Puerto Rico IGDA. By the way, I was a mentor this year, so full circle, and it's really cool to give back and talk to people about my path. So through Cafecitos, I actually met someone, that helped me with a referral for Gearbox, and I got the job. They were looking for someone with my skills and my drive and my passion, to analyze gameplay telemetry, and I was the right person. So you can say that I was when I saw the position online, and the requirements, it was like This is almost like they're describing me,
Nice.
basically. So I was the right person for the job when I took it.
Wow. No, and
Yeah.
that's shout out to Cafecitos, like the
Yeah.
Puerto, like obviously even like on the island, Puerto Rico has a lot of ups and downs too. You mentioned in your career, a lot of ups and downs. The island itself has gone through so much. The game developers on the island are some of the not only like the chillest and like sweetest people, some of the smartest people I know within the industry, incredibly resourceful. And, like one of the things I love, especially like when we're talking about Puerto Ricans from the island, is they'll give you the shirt off, right off their back. You know what I mean? Like that community, that organization, Puerto Rican Game Developers Association, is actually like a really great group of people, and they've done a lot of great work for game development on the island. So like I'm happy that you mentioned them because I've been doing the Cafecitos for a while. And a lot of great positive stories to come out of it. I've heard, speaking to people that have benefited from it, nothing but great things. I think they don't get nearly the amount of flowers that they deserve. A lot of that work is happening in the background, but people know. If you know, but like
if you know.
yeah, but it's cool that you mentioned them, and I just want to kind of like highlight that for a bit. How would you describe your role doing an analysis and telemetry research? Like how would you describe your role there? Because I'm seeing this whole like evolution. Everything keeps like, you're not losing experience. You're like just absorbing like power-ups as you keep going to your new roles.
That's true.
How would you describe this role? You're getting power-ups. You keep evolving, and you're not leaving anything behind.
It's keeping evolving is paying attention to your strengths, paying attention to what you're good at, what fulfills you, and then basically paving my path. Like I'm actually creating my path. It's not like, it doesn't feel like someone, oh, Gretchen, here is the path. Go through it. No. My career has been more like I'm paving it. I'm actually creating that path for me. So how will I describe it? It's like I turn raw data from the games, analyze it, and report on specific areas in which players are encountering friction with the game. This could be friction with progression, meaning, they're taking longer than expected, to do a quest, to do a mission, to finish a level. Friction with a boss fight. Maybe a boss fight that should be 10 minutes. When you check is actually on average taking 30. And it's like, okay, should this boss fight be 30 minutes, or should this boss fight be 10? That depends on the design intention, right? So you go to the designer, is this the intention? Like, should it be 10 minutes or should it be 30? Because maybe if it should be a very challenging boss, right, 30 is fine. But if it's one of the earlier bosses or like mini bosses, then maybe 30 is not good, right? So it's kind of like this dance with design, about design intention and friction with the game. So there's a lot also of like difficulty balance. For instance, is the game too easy? Is the game too hard? Is there like a very high frequency of players falling to their deaths in like a specific part of the map, which can happen, by the way? It's like all of a sudden there's an uptick of like players dying in a specific part of the map. Is that intended? Is that not intended? Right? Does that mean there's a bug in there? Right? Or it's not a bug. Players overusing or underusing a skill. This is more like balancing of skills, right? Is the design intention for players to, you know, to have like a vast array, like different skills that they can use, versus, oh, by the way, like, okay, everybody that chooses like this character, like 80% of them are just using this one skill. So there's an imbalance in there in design. And it's like, so you talk to the designer, to the developer. It's like, is this okay? Do you want to change things? And then, so that's one part of it. I can get data from playtests. I can get data from live games, like a game that is currently ongoing. I can get data from past games. So in order to basically inform the next game, or I can get data from playtests. So playtests are, you know, small samples, so it's not like a big sample like a live game. So with small samples like a playtest, the idea is to basically combine the data that we got with playtest observations and survey answers, you know, from the players. Basically, if we see an outlier, so in small sample playtests, it's really hard to go with averages or medians or anything like that because it's such a small sample, so you don't do that. What you do is that you identify outliers. So it's like, oh, of this playtest of 8 players, 12 players, there was an outlier, or there was 2-3 outliers that spend like 10 minutes in a mission that should be done in 2 minutes, right? So because it is a playtest, playtests are recorded. So there's video. So I can go to each of those players' videos and to specific timestamps, by the way, of when they are having that friction. I will basically go to the videos and look at what happened in there to basically get more context about what actually happened, why it actually happened. So, oh, they took 10 minutes, but however, this is what happened, right? This is what we saw. Maybe it is a bug. Sometimes it is a bug in the game, by the way. Sometimes it is not a bug. Sometimes it is just like they miss like some instruction. Which then is like, hey, designers, maybe we should, maybe that instruction should be bigger. Maybe that instruction should just not go away, but make the player have a little bit more friction with that instruction. You know, instead of the instruction to just pop up and go away, maybe the instruction can just pop up and make the player, you know, click on something for it to go away.
So funny you mentioned, like, it's common now, but like a player dying or players dying like in a certain spot in a map. Like back in the day, that just would have like stuck, right? Now people like you and whole teams can look at that and make the necessary adjustments, you know. Yep. and so you know, like and to hear you talk about data and analysis and everything, it's so, I can tell you're, you know, it's obviously all this, it's a job, right? But it's not just a job for you, like you're passionate about this. Yeah. I would even dare say you love data analysis, right? Like, and in your career path, all this, you know, we're talking like, now you're experienced. Now you're like a grizzled veteran, right? Like you've been in the ringer in this field, right? It's the video game industry, and it is an industry, right? It's a business. It's a very demanding, creative field. It needs everything you have to give and just a little bit more, and even more on top of that, right? Like you have to give a lot to it. How do you stay inspired or avoid burnout in a very demanding creative industry like the video game business?
Taking days off, and completely forget about work during those days. And when I say completely forget, I do completely forget. So I sometimes, like during the weekends, right? I sometimes take notes by end of day Friday about tasks that are ongoing, or maybe I need to do a follow-up or something like that on Monday. So I basically have notes for me. I create notes for me on Friday, so that when I get back on Monday, it's like, oof, yes, this is what I need to do. Yeah, so basically, if I don't do that, sometimes I keep thinking about what I need to do on Monday, which is not good, by the way. I also attend networking events, conferences. I know I talked to you about this, before we started this interview. But Latinx Games Festival, it's one of them. Basically, when you learn about new perspectives, new tools, it's like a refresher. It's kind of like, oh, this is interesting. This is a new shiny thing. I want to try that new shiny thing in my job. So yeah, like conferences keep me like inspired about the future, new techniques, tools that I can learn, apply. Podcasts can also do that trick, because you're learning about people, their perspectives. Like, even I mean, I hope maybe this interview can also like help other folks, but like, ooh, this is a new perspective. This is a new position and like games that I wasn't aware of. So I don't know. It keeps the juices flowing, right? When you learn about something new.
So I can say for sure, because I've learned a lot more than I knew before entering this interview. So I think this is going to be of great value for people trying to break into the industry, or if you're already in the industry and you need some extra context. I can say for sure this is going to be very valuable for people out there. I'm curious, like, obviously, we're in talking to you and getting to know you, you've seen gaming from like, early, let's say humble beginnings. Is gaming. It was really exciting back then too, right? But like early gaming and the evolution, you rode it and then you entered it, influenced it, adapted, learned, or molded by it. What gaming trends excite you the most right now?
Accessibility in games. I mean, given my background, my background in user research, in human-computer interaction. So I'm excited with game developers taking accessibility more seriously, I guess. So in the past, and still, it still happens, right? That sometimes game developers don't pay attention to accessibility, or maybe when they do, it's kind of like a checklist, maybe at the end of the design, developer cycle. But I'm super interested in seeing accessibility being part of the design process. And by the way, just for the people that might not understand the concept of accessibility, accessibility is basically making games more open, like so that more people can play, more people are able to play games. This could be a disability, but it could also be just elderly being able to play the game. For an example, like making the text bigger, or having an option. Basically, if you go to settings, having options to make the text bigger, having an option to have contrast, like for the text to have more contrast with the background, so that you can actually read it and see it. I really want to play the games when I get old, to be honest. I'm a gamer. I really don't want to change that identity. I want to keep playing games, so accessibility is key for that, because my eyes will not be, as they are today. Maybe my hearing will not be as it is today, right? So having accessibility features will actually help me like keep playing games. So why not? So one of the things that have changed also is that some markets are now have specific mandates and policies, so that accessibility is part of apps. Accessibility is part of websites. Accessibility is part of games. So there's a mandate for this. So for a lot of the definitely AAA games, they're paying more attention because they might get fined, let's say by the European Union or something like that, if they don't comply with accessibility features. And also, like, if they don't comply, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm actually excited, because then I'm thinking that maybe more user experience designers will have more responsibilities in game design, and also in a way game user research, and folks like me, doing gameplay data analysis will actually be able to test and track how those accessibility features will impact, like engagement, retention in games.
Accessibility is so important, and I'm happy you brought that up, because when I think about accessibility, obviously some of the quick things that come to my mind, I think like UI UX. I think of the controllers that Sony and Microsoft made for their consoles, like where you can add extra parts, and I believe they're like open source. I don't quote me on that, but like essentially they're reaching out to the wider development community to be like, hey, help us figure this out, right? I also think of like accessibility being like a little deeper and wider than that. Like, so, I split my time between like India and the United States. And when I go to India and I pull up Steam, I have a US account, but when I go to like Steam on like a browser, it shows me the India version of Steam. Yes. And I see that the pricing's different. And when I do the conversion, it costs less for most games to buy it in India than it would to buy in the States. And I think that's accessibility, like that.
Accessibility, yes. Yeah, it is.
So this is this is like a conversation that needs to go like folks in data like yourself, like need to be in the room, sitting at the table discussing this. People from different markets, especially if we're talking LATAM, right? Like this is also a market that can benefit from, like I said, maybe I'm probably reaching deep, but like access to dev kits, like accessibility can have a wide variety of meanings here. But yes. I understand what you're saying. So like when I hear it, I think of like, the like UI UX controllers. I want to play games until until my last breath. Like I was born into it. I'm gonna die with the control in my hand, baby. Like I don't want to give it up. So if there's any way to not only ensure that we can continue playing, but to bring people that couldn't play back in the day, they can play now, like I'm all for it. But like I said, it's also like, it's a bigger conversation, and we like the industry is diving in. I believe there's a SIG, and like there's a lot of folks out there that are passionate about this. I'm really happy you brought it up, because it's too easy to get like lost in the, well, if I can play it, then like you're not thinking about anybody else, right? So I'm happy you brought it up, and it's actually something that I think about often. Like I said, I think about it maybe like in all too many directions. My brain has multiple tabs open in my head where I'm like, oh, it could be in this and that. But like, thank you for bringing that up. So on one more thing on the accessibility front, because I'm actually really passionate about it. Have you seen any examples that stand out to you in games? If anything does stand out that you think is like a great way to approach, or somebody who's not maybe familiar with accessibility and game dev can look at a particular game and be like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like, is there anything that stands out for you that that made an impact like that?
I believe that so The Last of Us had like really good accessibility features. But I can't recall like a specific one.
Well, it's
However,
a big game.
yeah, it's
I'm
a big
sure
game, but
everyone
there's
has it and they can figure it out.
But let's just say, like, I know that there are games out there that when you go in, there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time. Let's say League. Like with League, there's so much going on. There's so much action. There's so many skills being triggered at the same time. And you have the different groups, different factions or whatever. And you can see this happening in other games too. But the idea is like, how can you tell when it's a friendly versus an enemy, right? Some games have problems with that. Of like, because basically everyone looks like. So it's like, what if you could, have the option? It's okay if you don't want it. It's okay if you don't want it, but have the option to highlight when it is an enemy, right? So basically, if you have that option in the game, enable that option, and then you will see kind of like a highlight, like a shadowy highlight on the enemy, so that you're actually clearly seeing, oh, that's an enemy versus a friendly. So that's kind of like one of them. Yeah, I mean, what I told you about having a bigger text, like if there is, and more when there are games that are heavy on text. Narrative games that are heavy on text, that maybe there's not a lot of audio, but you need to read. It's like, make it readable. Like, it needs to be readable, and not only make it readable for your, the people that have good eyesight, but also make it readable, for people that might not have such a good eyesight, so that you can, make it bigger. I understand sometimes, from the design, point of view, that sometimes people think, oh, but that will make the game uglier, right? But I'm like, it is an option. It is optional, right? I'm not saying ship the game that way.
Right.
I'm saying give the option to make the text bigger, or to have more contrast, even if it makes it, uglier.
I mean, it wouldn't be ugly to the person that can read it and enjoy the game and get pulled into it, right? Like, they're gonna love it and not think twice.
Yes, they want to play the game.
Yeah, or like, like identifying the players you mentioned, I think is actually really important. Like, some games even like within the options will strip away most of the colors and just have like a green player, a purple player, red player, black background, and it's like, there's your game. And for us, maybe that's not for us, but it could be somebody that has a bit of sight color deficiency, and they may have a hard time making out some colors, so like, I don't know, I could go on, I'll put a cap in. I could go on and on about it, because like, I think it's really important. And obviously, like, someone like yourself who's in data, who's always analyze things to make things better, I can see why this is like an important topic for you. Yeah.
And because a lot of people, so just because I do follow like tournaments and leagues and esports, right? Whenever they hear about accessibility, sometimes they think, oh, but that gives an edge to someone else. And gives gives an edge in competition. Like if you let them know, have a highlight for the enemy. And the way I talk about this is that first is optional, and second, then you have competition in which that is enabled or disabled. You set the rules, like you set your rules for the tournaments, you set the rules for your league. So, okay, you don't want to highlight the enemies because that gives an edge to some, then don't allow it, or have competition in which that is allowed, so that everybody has a balanced gameplay.
Yeah, like an accessibility bracket or a
Oh
whole
my God,
tournament
yeah.
actually.
Can you imagine that?
That would be amazing.
Oh,
Actually,
great.
that would be
Yes.
amazing. Hey,
Yes.
you might have stumbled onto something cool here. If anyone's out there, anybody at like Twitch, or if anybody wants to like sponsor this idea, get at us. We'll figure it out. But that's really cool. And like, your history, your experience in your journey, not, nobody's path in industry is like linear and straightforward, but your path is like, yeah, like you mentioned before, you warned me, it's definitely like a roller coaster. There's a lot of twists and turns and different things that like you learned and sharpened up, brought into your arsenal. So every time you stepped into a new role, you were more than ready for it. If you can give some advice to people out there that are trying to break into the industry today, what would it be? What would you tell them?
Study, get a degree, in what you want to pursue. It definitely opens doors. It definitely helps you get the interview. It could be like, yes, it could be a college degree, could also be like a certificate, it could be something to show off your skills, like build a portfolio, which is basically what I did even when I was pivoting my career to be more data centric. When you have a portfolio with passion projects, you can then talk about those passion projects, and people hear and feel your passion when you're talking about those projects. So it's so good on interviews, because people feel it. It's like, oh my God, this person actually knows what they're doing, and they like what they do because they're talking about something they're passionate. Yes, those are the passion projects. Network, and more network. Like, if you live in a big city, like myself, I live in LA. There's no excuse. There's no excuse to not do networking. And if you don't live in a major city, connect with like-minded people online and attend like online networking events. Even Cafecitos, I know Cafecitos is an online networking event. And maybe even create your own network, create your own mini group wherever you are. I bet there's people, even from your own school, from your own high school, or that are interested in games, and why not connect, and do your mini networking event in your town. Also, it is okay to be outside of the industry for a while. At the end of the day, we all need to pay rent. We all have lives. So it is okay. It is okay to be outside of the industry. Better if it's something related, right? In which you can learn and develop certain skills that can be transferable to the game industry. But still, it is okay to be outside of the industry, as long as you keep networking, keep building your portfolio, and keep learning. One of the most interesting things about this advice, I feel, is that it's not only about breaking in, is also about staying in touch and staying in the game industry. Like you really need to keep studying. You really need to keep learning about new techniques, new tools. There's always something new that you need to learn to get better at your job. And having, passion projects on the side is always good. It's always good to have. And also networking should be part of your lifestyle. Every now and then, go to the Latinx festival, attend conferences, talk to people. It's part of the job. Let's say that networking, it's part of the job.
Wow, I think that's a big takeaway. Like, keep your skills sharp, right? Have something to show for the work that you put in, and get to know folks within the industry. You yourself came up with somebody as well, breaking it at the same time, and like you mentioned it earlier. I think it's important too. Or like, it could be someone like in your high school, like it could be the four kids you sit at lunch talking about games all day. That could be the future of the industry right there. You could like connect with people that share your same interests and passions, bringing each other up, learn from each other, teach each other, keep your skills sharp, put yourself out there, network. And when the opportunity comes, when you're at bat, swing a home run, don't miss.
Yeah.
Go for it, right? Like, because that's what it sounds like. You went for it. You put yourself out there. You learned. You got better. You innovative. You innovated in this field and grew within it. And you're a young veteran in this very young industry. And I'm happy that I did this interview with you and was able to capture what's going to end up being basically, like, it's long now, but in as we go on in the years, I'm happy to capture this snapshot of your career so far. Gretchen, this is awesome. Thank you so much for participating at the 7th annual Latinx Games Festival. Can you let people out there watching where they can find you? How can they get in touch with you? How can they reach you?
By the way, thanks for the opportunity to talk about my journey. It's been great. And if anyone wants to know more or have questions, or even wants to play Rocket League with me, they can email me at gretmail@gmail.com, or at me on Discord as Capesid. So Capesid with a K and a Z like Sorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. And thank you for everyone watching this interview with Gretchen and myself. Thank you for participating and watching the 7th annual Latinx Games Festival. My name is Jason Vega on behalf of Gretchen. Have a great day.